I was born with a devil inside me. I cannot resist killing any more than a poet can resist the urge to sing. When it comes to serial killers, Jack the Ripper often comes to mind. He murdered 5 sex workers and taunted investigators. However, around the same time, a more monstrous killer emerged in the United States. His identity was no mystery, his crimes were more heinous, and his secrets were hard to crack. In 1886, 25-year-old Herman Webster Mudgett left his hometown of New Hampshire for Chicago, adopting the alias Henry Howard Holmes to escape his past. Within a few years, he built a 3-story hotel, designed like a maze with various traps. He lured guests in and murdered them. After the hotel burned down, rumors spread that over 200 remains, complete and incomplete, were found in the ruins. Holmes was born in 1861 into a wealthy farming family in New Hampshire, descended from the area's first British settlers. Despite the family's wealth, he lacked a good upbringing. His parents were devout Methodists, with his mother using religion as a daily guide for raising him, ensuring all his behavior aligned with religious doctrines. His father, an alcoholic with serious violent tendencies, used beatings, confinement, and food deprivation to discipline the children. This harsh upbringing made Holmes detest religion from a young age and left him without a sense of remorse or compassion. Holmes's school years also greatly impacted his life. He was often bullied at school for his good grades and somewhat eccentric behavior. On his way to school, he had to pass by the village doctor's office. One day, when his classmates noticed his fear of the skeleton inside, they dragged him in and forced him to touch the skeleton's head. Ironically, this incident didn't psychologically harm Holmes, but rather removed his inner fears. He developed a strong interest in human anatomy and an almost morbid fascination with skeletons. After being scolded or beaten by his parents, he would escape to the nearby woods, where he dissected animals and indulged in the process. Holmes later said that, in a gentle age, this was very evil for a healthy child, but it turned out to be a heroic treatment method. It instilled in him, first, a strong curiosity and a desire to learn. A few years later, I chose to become a doctor. In 1878, 17-year-old Holmes married a girl from a similarly wealthy family, and they had their only child. Unfortunately, the marriage was merely a means for Holmes to gain financially. Years later, using his wife's dowry to pay for his tuition, he entered the University of Michigan's medical school, laying the foundation for Holmes's criminal career. During his university years, Holmes was far from well-behaved. His wealthy family had taught him the importance of money, and his desire for it showed an unusual maturity. To make money, he stole remains from the morgue to sell. Soon, this no longer satisfied his ambitions, and he found a more lucrative method, using corpses to defraud insurance companies. In the 19th century, as United States industry and technology boomed and the insurance business flourished, the number of accidental deaths increased yearly. Deaths from train accidents, car accidents, and fires were so common that few questioned the circumstances surrounding a corpse. Holmes exploited this by disfiguring corpses, forging identities in accident scenes, and filing fraudulent insurance claims to profit from the remains, which became his money-making tools. If he lacked corpses from accidental deaths, he created his own. His pathological fascination with corpses since childhood, combined with his medical expertise and insurance industry connections, allowed him to devise the perfect murder method. He didn't worry about disposing of remains or leaving traces, making his murder methods more sophisticated than those of other serial killers. After graduating from school, Holmes abandoned his wife and child and entered the fraud industry. He developed a new scheme. He took loans to acquire property, used it as collateral for debts to build houses and buy furniture, then sold the property and disappeared, leaving others to face the debt. In the summer of 1886, 25-year-old Holmes moved to Chicago, changing his name to avoid past victims. He found work at a pharmacy. Soon after, the pharmacist's husband died of cancer, and the owner, Elizabeth, feeling depressed, entrusted the pharmacy to Holmes. Within weeks, Holmes persuaded Elizabeth to sell him the pharmacy. He used underhanded methods, mortgaging the pharmacy's fixtures and stock to secure funds as a down payment, promising to pay the remainder monthly, and letting her stay in the apartment above. However, he defaulted, leading Elizabeth to sue him. Then Elizabeth mysteriously disappeared. When someone asked about her, Holmes claimed she had gone to visit relatives in another state. With Elizabeth out of the way, Holmes took full control of the pharmacy and made money by selling counterfeit medicine. Although illegal, this was one of his most legitimate and humane businesses. During this period, Holmes used his earnings to purchase a vacant lot across from the pharmacy and built his own hotel, known locally as a castle. This was no ordinary hotel. Externally, it was an unattractive gray building 3 stories high, with the first floor housing a new pharmacy and various shops, and the second and third floors consisting of guest rooms and private offices. The hotel's interior was a maze, with over 100 windowless rooms, windows only in corridors or stairwells, some staircases leading to dead ends, some doors opening to brick walls, and some walls sliding like panel doors. More chilling were rumors of secret passages throughout the hotel leading to a basement equipped with gas chambers, crematoriums, and lime pits. To avoid suspicion over these bizarre designs, Holmes frequently changed designers and construction workers, sometimes even participating in the construction himself. Holmes was like a spider, weaving a web of rooms to ensnare his victims. Holmes's mistress, 31-year-old Julia Smythe, was the wife of Dr. Lawrence Connor, who moved into Holmes's hotel and worked in his pharmacy. Upon discovering Julia's affair with Holmes, Lawrence resigned and moved away, leaving Julia and their 5-year-old daughter. Julia stayed at the hotel, continuing her relationship with Holmes. On Christmas Eve 1891, both Julia and her daughter disappeared. Holmes initially claimed Julia had left unexpectedly to visit her dying sister, but later changed his story, saying she had fled her ex-husband. Eventually, he claimed Julia died during an abortion, despite having no experience in such procedures and the high mortality rate associated with them. It was speculated that he then poisoned Julia's daughter to conceal the true cause of her mother's death. In May 1892, 23-year-old Emmeline Cigrand began working for Holmes's hotel and served as his secretary for 6 months. Reports indicated Holmes hired her due to her connection to a doctor promoting a vaccine purported to cure alcoholism. Those who saw Emmeline weeks before her disappearance noted she seemed to have lost interest in Holmes and their relationship. December 1892 was the last time Emmeline was seen. Her parents were told by Holmes that Emmeline had left to marry a man named Robert Phelps. The police suspected she might be another victim of Holmes's alleged botched abortion cover-ups. In 1893, Chicago won the right to host the World's Columbian Exposition, celebrating the 400th anniversary of Columbus's discovery of the Americas. The 6-month event attracted 27.5 million visitors, with over 700,000 on peak days. Besides the splendor, diseases like diphtheria and cholera spread, and with thousands of trains entering and exiting, the city's murder rates soared. In the first half of 1892 alone, nearly 800 violent murders occurred, making disappearances all too common. It was during this time that Holmes's hotel officially opened, marking the beginning of his reign of terror. At the opening, he hired numerous women as hotel staff and purchased life insurance for them, naming himself as the beneficiary. His first victims were these insured female employees. Next were female visitors from out of town for the exposition. According to police records of missing persons and accounts from nearby shop employees, no women were ever seen leaving Holmes's hotel. The third category of victims were women whom Holmes lured to the hotel under the pretense of marriage, forcing them to sign over their property to him before killing them. For example, in early 1893, a 24-year-old actress named Minnie moved to Chicago. Holmes claimed he had met her at an employment office, but in reality, he had encountered her years earlier in Boston. He offered her a job as a private stenographer at the hotel. Later, under the guise of marriage, he had her transfer her property to him. Months later, Minnie's sister, Anna, came to visit. On July 5th, Anna wrote to her aunt, saying she planned to accompany Brother Harry to Europe. In the letter, she stated, "Brother Harry says you need never worry about me again, either financially or in any other way. He and my sister will take care of me. I hope our hard days are over." After that, both Minnie and Anna vanished. Holmes's method of killing was efficient. He would place his victims in soundproof rooms equipped with gas jets and peepholes. After turning on the gas and waiting for them to suffocate, he would coat the corpses with lubricant to slide them into the basement. There, he would process the remains and sell them to illegal institutions. When the police searched the hotel after arresting Holmes, they found bloodstains and scratch marks on almost every wall and discovered tools like a dissection table, a rack, and a bone scraper in the basement. After the exposition, with foot traffic significantly reduced, Holmes planned to leave Chicago and close down the hotel business. He surfaced in Fort Worth, Texas, where he encountered 2 sisters who were railroad heiresses. He promised marriage to one of them, and eventually both were murdered, making him the legal heir to their property. Holmes's arrest stemmed from the murder of his former partner Benjamin Freeland Pitzel, who, a carpenter with a criminal record, had been involved in the hotel's design and construction and had built several criminal tools for Holmes's hotel. In July 1894, Holmes was arrested and initially imprisoned for selling mortgage goods in St. Louis, Missouri, but he was soon released on bail. However, while in prison, he conversed with a convicted desperado. Holmes fabricated a plan to buy insurance for himself and then fake his death to defraud a company out of $10,000. He promised the death row inmate a $500 commission for the name of trustworthy lawyers. Guided to a young attorney who thought Holmes's plan clever and agreed to participate, the plan to fake Holmes's death failed when the insurance company became suspicious and refused payment. Holmes approached Benjamin with a similar scheme. Benjamin agreed to fake his own death so his wife could collect a $10,000 life insurance policy. The plan was to be carried out in Philadelphia, where Benjamin would pose as an inventor and die in a laboratory explosion, after which Holmes would find a suitable corpse to play Benjamin. However, on September 4, 1894, Holmes actually killed Benjamin by stupefying him with a preservative and setting his body on fire. In his later confession, Holmes claimed Benjamin was still alive after taking the preservative and then accidentally burned to death, but forensic evidence indicated Benjamin was dead before the preservative was administered. After killing Benjamin, Holmes approached Benjamin's wife, Carrie, and asked her to hand over their 3 children, 13-year-old Alice, 9-year-old Nellie, and 7-year-old Howard. He then persuaded the children to go to the insurance company to collect a large sum of money. After obtaining the insurance money, he pretended to take the 3 children on a trip, while also claiming to Carrie that Benjamin was hiding in London and lying to her that their 3 children had disappeared during the journey. Later, he admitted to murdering Alice and Nellie on October 25, 1894. He forced the girls into a large box, locked them inside, drilled a hole in the lid, ran a hose from the hole to a gas pipe, and caused the girls to suffocate. A detective was assigned to investigate Holmes and locate 3 missing children. In Holmes's Toronto cellar, he found the remains of Alice and Nellie. The detective later wrote, "The deeper we dug, the worse the smell. At 3 feet deep, we found what seemed to be human forearm bones." There, he also discovered unsent letters from the children, preserved by Holmes. This led the police to further investigate Holmes's Chicago property and trail to Indianapolis, where Holmes had rented a house. Eventually, Howard's teeth and bones were found in the chimney of Holmes's rented house. On November 17, 1894, Holmes was arrested in Boston, ending his killing spree. His trial began in Philadelphia on October 28, 1895. Holmes fired his lawyers and chose to defend himself, overestimating his ability in paying the price for his arrogance. To get a reduced sentence, he falsely claimed Benjamin's body came from a New York doctor for insurance fraud. Unexpectedly, Carrie appeared in court, exposing his crimes. His psychological defense collapsed, and he confessed to 27 murders. However, due to the basement's harsh conditions, police struggled to piece together remains and identify victims. Ultimately, he was convicted of 9 murders and sentenced to death by hanging on May 7, 1896. On May 7, 1896, Holmes was hanged. Until his death, he remained calm and amiable, showing little fear, anxiety, or depression before dying. He requested to be encased in concrete and buried 10 feet deep to prevent his body from being stolen for dissection. After the hanging, he struggled and convulsed for over 20 minutes before dying. Later, many involved in the case met strange fates. The man who first reported Holmes's illegal transactions to the police was shot by a police officer. 2 coroners died of blood poisoning. The prison warden who held Holmes committed suicide, and the district attorney's office mysteriously burned down, sparing only Holmes's photos. The former caretaker who knew the most about the murder castle also committed suicide in 1914. Notably, Holmes's trial process took less than a year, which was rare given the complexity of his crimes, including numerous disappearances, frauds, and illegal body trafficking. Evidence collection and case file organization should have taken much longer. Adding to the mystery, Holmes's hotel burned down shortly after the police search. This led to speculation that a crime syndicate linked to Holmes may have killed those connected to him. Though this theory is strange, it does raise questions.